The sun was shining brightly through the stained glass windows of St. Matthew's Church, casting vibrant patches of color on the white marble floor. The guests had all taken their seats, turning occasionally to admire the flowers that lined the pews or whisper compliments about the bride's dress. Everything was set for what was supposed to be the happiest day of Jenna Thompson's life. Jenna stood behind the large double doors at the back of the church, clutching her bouquet tightly. Her hands trembled not from nerves, but from a feeling she couldn't quite explain. She had always imagined this day being perfect, yet there was a subtle heaviness in her chest that wouldn't go away. She tried to shake it off. Maybe it was just the pressure, the anticipation, or the hundreds of eyes waiting to see her walk down the aisle. Beside her stood her 5-year-old son, Oliver. He looked dashing in his tiny tuxedo, holding the satin pillow with the wedding rings carefully stitched into place. Jenna smiled down at him, but he wasn't smiling back. His brows were furrowed, his lips pressed in a straight line. He looked up at her with an expression far too serious for a child his age. "Are you okay, sweetheart?" she asked, kneeling. Slightly to meet his eyes, Oliver hesitated. Then he whispered, "Mom, don't marry him." Jenna blinked. "What did you say?" "Don't marry him," he repeated, louder this time. "Please, Mom, don't." She was stunned. "Oliver, what are you talking about? Why would you say that?" But before he could answer, the wedding march began. The doors opened, and the guests rose from their seats. Jenna forced a smile, gently guiding Oliver forward. She tried to dismiss his words as childish confusion or anxiety, but they clung to her like thorns. Each step down the aisle felt heavier than the last. At the altar stood Richard Hayes, her fiancé. Tall, charming, and impeccably dressed, Richard wore the confident smile he always had in public. He nodded reassuringly as Jenna approached, but Oliver pulled slightly on her arm. She looked down at her son, and he whispered again, "Please, don't marry him. Not good." The whispers started in the pews as people noticed the boy's hesitance. Jenna paused, just steps away from the altar, as she turned toward her son again, crouching beside him. "What's going on, Oliver?" "You need to tell me now." Oliver's eyes welled up. "He told me not to tell you." "But I saw him, Mom. He was in the basement on the phone last night when he thought I was asleep. He said he didn't love you. He said he only wanted your money." Jenna froze. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Richard stepped forward, his voice sharp but low. "Jenna, this is ridiculous. He's just a kid. He probably had a dream or misunderstood something." But Oliver wasn't done. He also said something about a woman named Claire. Said she doesn't know about you, and that once you're married, he'll get what he wants and be gone. Gasps echoed around the church. Jenna's eyes widened. Claire, the name wasn't familiar to her. But there had been subtle signs at phone calls, unexplained absences, changes in behavior that she had chosen to ignore. "Is this true?" Jenna asked, rising slowly and turning to face Richard directly. He chuckled nervously. "Jenna, come on. You can't honestly believe this. He's 5. Children say things." But Oliver wasn't backing down. "He lied to you. I heard everything. He doesn't care about you. I didn't know what to do. But I don't want you to be sad." Jenna looked at her son, her eyes filling with tears not because of sadness, but because of the courage he had shown. Her hands, still holding the bouquet, began to tremble again, and she dropped it. "I believe him," she said quietly. The church fell silent. Richard's face turned pale. "Are you serious? You're going to let a child ruin your wedding day?" But Jenna wasn't listening to him anymore. Her mind was replaying every moment that had once seemed minor when he changed the topic about prenups, the way he always avoided talking about their future beyond the wedding, the late-night texts he'd brushed off, the conversations she wasn't allowed to hear. She turned to the officiant. "I can't go through with this." And then, before anyone could process what was happening, Richard turned and bolted down the altar steps, through the side door of the church, and out into the bright afternoon sun. Guests gasped and scrambled to look through the windows. Within moments, he was gone, disappearing as suddenly as he had entered Jenna's life. Several guests stood frozen, unsure of what to do or say. Jenna stood still too, the weight of the moment sinking in, She felt 100 eyes on her, but all she could see was Oliver, who now clutched her hand tightly. She bent down, took him in her arms, and hugged him tightly. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for telling me the truth." Whispers turned into supportive claps. Her best friend Melissa rushed forward and wrapped her in a hug. "I always had a bad feeling about him," Melissa murmured, "but I didn't want to say anything unless I was sure. I'm so glad you listened to Oliver." Later that afternoon, while most guests had gone home and the church had grown quiet, Jenna sat with her son on the steps outside. The crisp breeze carried away the tension of the day, leaving only clarity behind. "Are you okay, Mom? K-Pom?" Oliver asked. She smiled. "I think I'm better than I've been in a long time." "Yes," she said, "especially because the wedding didn't happen." He leaned against her, and she wrapped her arm around him. In the distance, the police were already searching for Richard. It turned out that Jenna wasn't the only woman he had been involved with. A private investigator, hired by one of his former fiancées, would later uncover his trail of deceit, manipulation, and financial fraud stretching across 3 states. He had vanished like a ghost, but his lies would eventually catch up to him. But none of that mattered in that moment. What mattered was that a little boy, brave beyond his years, protected the person he loved most in the world, and that person had listened. Jenna looked up at the sky, the light starting to fade. She had walked into the church expecting to begin a new life. Fans she had, just not the one she thought. It wasn't the wedding that marked a new beginning. It was the truth, and the little boy who spoke it.